So, in case you haven't heard, Trump's tariffs are delayed once again. Now they're delayed till August 7th. And when I say tariffs, I mean his original reciprocal tariffs. And at this point, this is just getting so stupid. So let's break down pretty much everything that's going on and what's likely to happen. As always, my name is Derek. I got my degree in finance, so you don't have to. Let's first set the timeline. So these reciprocal tariffs, which aren't really reciprocal in nature, I will talk about that here a little bit more in a second. These were originally set to go into effect April 2nd. Okay? They were immediately delayed until April 9th. They were then delayed again until July 9th. They were then delayed again until August 1st, which already happened. And now they were delayed again until August 7th because Customs and Border need more time to I don't know at this point what the excuse is. The point is they are delayed over and over and over again. And the real reason is because of the bond market. The one thing that actually owns Donald Trump and his tariff policies are the bond market. So we have these reciprocal tariffs looming over everybody, including the Federal Reserve, which is so ironic because Trump himself wants the Federal Reserve to cut their FFR, their interest rate, which they have pretty much not done specifically because of his tariff policies and because we don't know how much they're going to affect inflation. So you have these tariffs looming over everybody that are set to go into effect in just a couple of days. What's likely to happen? Well, in my opinion, and other finance professionals and economists, it pretty much depends on the bond market. If the bond market in the next couple of days even so much as flinches, it's likely that he's going to pause the tariffs again. Or in the days after he initially implements them on August 7th, if the bond market, and we're talking about the 30-year Treasury specifically, if it flinches, he is going to pause them. Why? Well, because the bond market in general has a lot more power than people realize, and a lot of the focus tends to be on the stock market because it's more exciting. But the bond market directly controls how much it costs the government to service its debt. And when bonds increase, yes, that doesn't change existing bonds, but the government has to constantly refinance or really roll over government debt. In fact, this year, close to $10 trillion of government debt is becoming due. So some of that is short-term treasuries, T-bills. Some of that is longer-term 10 and 30-year treasury rates. So when the bond market flinches, Trump flinches. And he is truly earning his name, Taco. Trump always chickens out. Now, at the end of the day, I think personally that this entire tariff debacle really is meant to keep him and his name in the media. I don't actually know if they were ever meant to be implemented because when you look at them from a macroeconomic lens, in a globally connected economy, they're just stupid. They don't make sense. And I said I was going to talk about how they're not reciprocal tariffs. They're not. These reciprocal tariffs are based on trade deficits with countries. Trump has something against a trade deficit. He doesn't like the idea of a trade deficit. I don't know if that's because he doesn't understand them or because he knows his base doesn't understand what a trade deficit is, but a trade deficit by itself is inherently not a bad thing. Okay, it can be a bad thing, and over the long term, yes, you are funneling US dollars overseas, but we could get into an entire other hour-long video about how that is almost required in order to garner foreign investment, in order for the government to fund its massive deficit, and that deficit in order for the GDP to continue growing, because that deficit is then funneled into the economy. So it is all interconnected, and you can't just look at one part and say that's bad because it sounds bad. Okay, these reciprocal tariffs they're based on trade deficits with countries sometimes significantly smaller than the United States. You are never going to have a trade surplus with a country a tenth of your size. Okay? Why? Well, because if there's 10 million people in that country, how are they supposed to import more from America, the United States, with 300 plus million people when they have 10, 20, or 30 million people? It's just not going to happen. So they're going to export more because you can create a ton of goods with 10 or 20 or 30 million people. And where are you going to export that? You're going to export that into major markets like the United States, like Asia, right? Like Europe. So the trade deficit by itself is not a reason to punish these countries with massive tariffs. Secondly, Trump has said that this these tariffs are meant to bring back manufacturing in the United States. Look, you are never going to have your iPhone manufactured in fucking Kentucky. And that is because Americans and American workers are never going to accept the rates, the wages required to manufacture those iPhones here. Because if they were manufactured here, they would cost $3,000 plus, and then no one's going to buy it because it costs so much to manufacture here. And then what's going to happen? Well, then you have companies like Apple and every other company that's forced through tariffs to make their products here. You're going to have those profits plummet. And on the surface, you might say, who cares? And I agree. Who cares? The problem is that your retirement and my retirement and every middle-of-the-road American retirement is tied to these companies through the stock market. And even if you don't own Apple directly, you own them through funds, through exchange-traded funds. And if you ever want a chance of retiring in this system that exists, this is how it is. So yes, do we need to change the system? Probably. Do we need to decouple people's ability to retire from CEOs getting extremely wealthy and major shareholders getting extremely wealthy? Yes, we do. But right now, this is how it's structured. So when you have a tariff policy that is either A, designed to bring back manufacturing jobs in the United States, you're going to wreak havoc on people's retirement accounts, or B, if it's made to treat America more fairly on the global trading stage, you wouldn't just randomly tariff people or tariff countries based on their trade surplus or deficit with the United States, because most countries are smaller than the United States. Yes, there are some that are bigger, but the United States has 300 million people. So a lot of these countries that got 30, 40, 50% tariffs are smaller than the United States. How can you possibly expect them to ever import more into their tiny little country than they're going to export into a massive and rich economy like the United States? That's the other thing. The United States is rich. We're rich here, okay? You might not feel rich. I might not feel rich. The average American might not feel rich. But when you compare it to the global population, the United States is rich. So these countries are going to export more than they can import into their poorer economies that are significantly fucking smaller. So what is the point of this video? One, it's basically to call out the ridiculousness that these tariffs are. And before you say, hey, you're biased against Trump. No, I am not. I am not biased against an individual person, okay? If that individual person came to the stage with actual good policies, I would give them credit. I don't care if they're a Democrat or a Republican. I don't care about their affiliation. I don't care about who they are. When we're talking about economics, I want to see good policies. So what I am biased against is bad economic policies. Okay, Trump has put forth some very bad economic policies. If he had done the opposite, then I would give him praise or credit where credit is due. I mean, I've criticized Biden. I've criticized Harris. I mean, her whole thing about giving people $25,000 to buy houses, I thought that was ridiculous. I criticized her on the campaign trail. Okay, so I don't care who's president. I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican. I want to see good economic policies. And tariffing everybody, tariffing your literal allies who are going to support you in any sort of future war, plus they are literally good for your economy, like Canada, like Mexico, like the European Union, is absolutely just ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. And all it does is it propagates this narrative that Trump is strong. Okay, that might sound good on the surface, but Trump being strong doesn't do anything for you or I. Okay, all it does is, in this case, it F's up your wallet because your purchasing power is going to be massively diminished when tariff inflation comes through your wallet, your household, your grocery store like a fucking tsunami. And people, people are saying, what, where's the tariff inflation? You know what? It's exactly like a tsunami, right? A tsunami starts as this tiny little wave just a few inches above the water. That's how the tsunami starts. And then when it hits land, it's 20, 30, 40, 50 feet tall, the waves, okay? That's what's going to happen if these tariffs actually go into effect with inflation, and you and I, the average American, is going to get fucked. Okay, so without risking making this video way too long. That is my rant on tariffs. I think they're ridiculous. I think the way that they've been implemented are ridiculous. I think the delays are ridiculous. If we're going to do it, just get it over with so the Federal Reserve can actually make policy changes that suit the economic environment instead of having to guess if Trump is actually going to put the tariffs or not, if they're going to be exemptions, if they're actually going to be 50, 60, 70%, or if he's going to slash them. Instead of living in this guessing game, in this economic hell, let's either do it or let's not. And let's get it over with or let's not. If you like personal finance, world economics, and investing, then you are in the right place. I hope this video was informative. I know this was a little more off-the-cuff type video. Usually I edit them. They're all structured. But the fact that these tariffs were delayed again is just driving me absolutely bonkers. I just get it over with or just cancel them completely. It's driving me insane. So I had to make a video on it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. It helps the channel out tremendously. It's difficult to grow on YouTube, but I love this stuff. I love being able to share this with you guys. Finance is my passion. The globally interconnected economy is my passion, and I want to share that with you guys as best as I can. So please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Until then, I will see you in the next video. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Take care.